Hello, faithful listeners. Welcome to another episode with Taylor and I. We are so excited to bring on Sarah Orman with Kiar Creative. She is a very, very talented copywriter. We had a really great conversation with her about just the importance of copy, but more than that, more about the mindset that's needed to really elevate your business in a way that kickstarts that growth, right? I loved all that she had to say. Taylor, what did you think of this conversation?
Oh, I thought it was awesome. Everything from where to draw inspiration from when it comes to your work and your copy to honestly just like some really great practical takeaways that I think whether you are outsourcing your copy or trying to go the DIY route, I thought that it was a really great episode with lots of nuggets of information in there.
Yes.
Also, her accent is so cute.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for you guys to listen to her accent. You guys will this is going to be easy listening with her adorable accent. So we cannot wait for you guys to listen to this episode. We hope that you enjoy it and we hope that it inspires you to head into the off season and look to other areas of your business where you can truly elevate and shine in this booking season.
This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm Taylor Petrinovich.
And I'm Kelly Gilster of 618 Studios.
And we are on a mission to help filmmakers level up their businesses and their craft so they can make more and work less.
We want to help you confidently take your business from mainstream to luxury, and it all starts right here. Well, hello, Sarah. We are so excited to have you today on the podcast to talk about all things copywriting. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Great. We are just kind of at the tail end of wedding season, trying to end as strong we can. Taylor, you have one wedding left, right? Or are you done?
It depends on when this goes live, but at the time of recording, I have one more.
Okay. Yeah, I have two more in 2 weeks. So we're kind of ending early this year. And Sarah, I'd love to hear from a copywriting perspective. Do you have a busy season? Or do you find, yeah.
Yeah, it's not necessarily seasonal, like a seasonal work that I do. I do find that when the wedding season slows down, people start to think about their needs outside of wedding photography, which is where I come in. So I do have a few folks that are interested in working with me over the winter months. When we get into January, I feel like people start to think about their website at that point, engagement season, I need to do some updates. And so I try to encourage people to think about it ahead of the game, but that's not always the way, as you probably know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Taylor and I just came off of a booking boot camp workshop that we did, and it's all about getting ready and prepped for booking season. And I feel like this is right in that, realm of preparing, how you're trying to help people get ahead of it. And that's why it's so important because eyes get on those websites during those engagement months. And, you never know when your ideal client is going to land on your page and if it's something that is going to resonate with them or not. And many times it also has to do with the verbiage used on your website and copywriting.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's key that, thinking ahead as much as you can, rather than, playing like to the back end of things and running to catch up instead of, being on the ball in the first place. So the sooner you can get sorted with those things and start to, get the ball rolling, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's true with like so many areas of business. Like sometimes like it's a constant game of playing catch up and we feel like we can never like get ahead and so we're always rushing and so that's how I feel sometimes too. And I think it's like something that we're all working towards
That's
being
life though,
better
right?
at.
Yeah, I mean that's true of all things in life. We all have, so much going on, and I think that it's important to make time to chip out a little bit, of everything as often as possible, and that's how you move the mark on things. Whether it's working in your garden, decorating your home, or working on your business, I think the more you can, think little and often to sort of move the mark on stuff, the better.
Yeah, I love that. Little and often. I don't think I've heard of that before.
Oh,
But that's so true.
really?
Yeah. So Sarah, I would love to hear how you, you know, got into copywriting, why you decided you really wanted to work with creatives, because I feel like you do work a lot with creatives. I actually found you through a very talented filmmaker, Josh and Serena. They had done a new website, and I was looking at their site credits and saw that you had done the copywriting. And I just thought that their like spoken, the way that they were speaking through their website was so in alignment with their brand and their ideal client. You totally nailed it. And so I was like, I have to know who this girl is, and you've helped us too along the way in our business. And so I'd love to hear just your backstory and history.
Sure. So my career history has all been event and hospitality related from a very young age. So I have over 20 years of experience in hospitality now. And a common thread from the very beginning was always, I was always drawn to the creative aspects of the work. So when I used to do event design and event execution, it was always helping clients create their dream event that I really enjoyed. Um, and so I took a leap of faith after I moved to the States, and wound up working for a floral and event designer, which was a much smaller business than I'd been accustomed to. I'd been working in five-star luxury hotels in London for a long time. And I felt like I was missing a little bit of, that the personal side of smaller creativity and entrepreneurship. So I took a leap of faith, as I said, and I was working for a floral event designer. And again, the consistent thread within that couple of years that I was doing that was always writing. Hey Sarah, we need to update the website. You're so good at that. Would you mind? Hey Sarah, we need some Instagram captions. Can you take care of that? And it sort of organically became a role that I fulfilled in every position I had. Consistently, I was also working weddings, so I got to really know the wedding industry, both I say back home, the UK when I was working there, and here now in just outside of DC. So I got to know a lot of the wedding professionals in this area, and dabbled a little bit in photography myself, wedding photography, did that for a few years, and sort of wore all these hats within the industry, but realized that the one thing that I really enjoyed and was mine and mine alone was this ability to write. And so I decided just before the pandemic, so late 2019, early 2020, that's the role I wanted to pursue and sort of set up business on my own, and see where it went. And that's now my full-time job.
That is amazing. That is so cool too that you came from this background of hospitality. Because Taylor and I always say that yes, we are filmmakers at our core, or we're filmmakers, but at our core is that we provide. We work in the hospitality industry, right? We are
Right.
working with clients that we want to provide an exceptional client experience, all of these things on the wedding day, before the wedding day, on the wedding day, after the wedding day. Hospitality is, like I said, really at the core of what we do. And that is, I think, also something that is exceptionally true in the luxury space, right? All of our work is good, photographer, everyone's work is solid in the luxury space, but it really comes down to the hospitality that you have woven through your business that
Right.
is going to set you apart.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah. So when you are working with creatives and they come to you, whether it's photographers, filmmakers, florists, I'm sure you work with a wide range of creatives. What is it that they are needing, or what are you seeing as some really common mistakes that they're making in their copywriting?
I think one of the first mistakes people tend to make, and I understand it because I've made it myself, and I continue to make it in entrepreneurship and business ownership, is this belief that we have to do it all ourselves as creative business owners. And I think that it's really difficult when you're working in a creative field, to sort of take a step back and say, well, that's not my realm. That's not my strong suit. That's not something that I'm good at. So therefore, I should be looking to a third party to take care of that for me. I think people believe that it's going to be easy. And so, or they want to do something quickly, and perhaps don't value the time it takes to do those things, whether it's building a website, writing the copy, and we've just got to get a website up, so let's put some copy in there, hit publish, and away we go. I think that that idea of having to wear all of those hats, for some reason, I think because it's the creative industry, we believe that we have to do that, otherwise we've, I don't want to say failed, but we've fallen short of expectations somehow. But really, the reality is to hand it off to someone who's more experienced in that, gives you the time to focus on what you're really good at and what you're supposed to be doing as a filmmaker or a photographer, whether that's editing or connecting with your clients or whatever it might be. So I think that's probably the most common mistake I see, and it happens a lot. But then I hear and I feel the relief once people have handed the reins over to someone who is purposely writing for them. It's like, well, I've taken that off of my plate. Suddenly I've freed up some time to focus my business where it should be focused.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would love to kind of dial it back and maybe hear from your perspective why copywriting is even important. So we obviously work in such a visual field and we're so like imagery based, honestly, that I think that it is a lot of people's maybe like thought that, the words don't matter. Like my work speaks for itself. So I would kind of love to hear your perspective on why this is not the case.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a great question, and a great way of looking at it, because yes, I'm working a lot with people who create visual beauty, right? But I feel strongly that the words should emulate the same feeling as your work as an artist, and that's not something that everyone's able to do, which is why you would bring in a copywriter. Your client at the end of the day is looking at those visuals, absolutely, but they also read those words, and the feeling that you want to create within your business has to come from both of those entities separately, and they work together in the end. So whether it's a quick scan of a headline or a deeper dive into why you do what you do as a wedding filmmaker, I think those words are really important for selling your story and telling, because people want to know who you are and why you do what you do, and whether we want to believe that or not, because no one likes writing or talking about themselves. The reality is our client is also looking to connect with you on a personal level and know more about you. And I think that's key in making sure that you have a solid brand and business.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
also just all goes back to understanding who your ideal client is, making sure that, you are speaking to them in a way that makes sense. Taylor, I feel like I love hearing your thing on with your copy on your website and how it ties in with your ideal client.
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of people think when they enter the luxury space, they have to use all of these like big fancy words and sound very like they're wearing a tuxedo all the time. But like I've actually found that may be true for some clients, but my clients, I've found that they generally like a little bit of quip, like a little bit of maybe like sarcasm, like very subtle sarcasm, like, so I really do try to like weave that into like how I'm like crafting my like Instagram captions or things like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's
But
really about knowing who your audience is.
and that's part of your personality, right? And so having your personality shine through your words is really important, because there's only so much of that you can do within your work, because you're capturing another subject. Really, the words are where you start to inject some of your own persona, and connect with your ideal client at that point, because they want to see who you are and they want to know who you are, because you're capturing something that's going to be a monumental moment in their life, and you're with them for the the duration of the whole day. I feel like you want to be friends with that person, right? Because they've got such an important role on your big day. So yeah, you want personality in those words, definitely.
Sarah, I love what you said too about how, we are such a visual part of the industry as filmmakers, and how those words need to intertwine with our work, in almost as though, I almost think of it this way, almost as though someone is looking at your website and they're reading and they've actually never watched a film of yours before, but just through reading those words, they can kind of start to paint a picture of what the feeling is going to be when they watch those films, like what they can expect in your artistry.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's essentially what the words are doing, right? You're painting a picture of what it feels like to rewatch your wedding film, or how it feels to, see it for the first time and remember all of those key moments from your day. I think that they do intertwine so closely, the visual and the vocabulary of your website. And I think it's really important to find a way for them to work well, and sell you and your story.
Yeah. Also, I kind of want to ask you your perspective on this. There's lots of different platforms where clients could potentially land on our work. So it could be Instagram, it could be our website, things like that. What do you think happens when a potential client, say, lands on someone's Instagram, and you can tell that a creative has really poured a lot into their Instagram? Maybe Instagram is more important to them to curate than it has been their website, and their website's maybe on the back burner, maybe it's kind of old, and like there's no what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, like there's a disruption in the verbiage, if that makes sense, from
Yeah,
like maybe the
absolutely.
bio. Yeah, like what does that do for the client experience in your eyes as a copywriter?
I think that it dilutes it, and it doesn't come across as strong, as someone who has thought consistently about all of those communication methods. So whether that's an Instagram caption or an Instagram bio to your website or blog posts. I know people don't blog as often anymore, but I really do believe in the value of blogging. Newsletters to your clients, whatever it might be in terms of client correspondence. I think having consistency across the board, for the words that you use and the tone within that language is really important. I mean, it's the same as wedding films, right? You wouldn't in your brand necessarily create two very different looks and feels from your film, right? You have a a tone that you go with, and a look that you an aesthetic that you try to achieve with your work. I think that people often forget that your marketing should have the same approach. It should be consistent.
Absolutely. Yeah, Taylor and I, one of our biggest things is like luxury is consistency. And so, making sure that that journey for that client or planner, when they, land somewhere and then they see maybe a beautiful website and they go to your Instagram and maybe it's like not as polished or vice versa, that can always cause some of that confusion when that consistency isn't there. And so that's why, for those listening, I think that's why it's so important to be sure that those pieces are in alignment, right? And not letting, say you're stronger in one point and you have a little bit of a weakness in another area. I love, Sarah, what you said too. Like that's why it's so good to outsource. And we do wear many hats as entrepreneurs, specifically as wedding filmmakers or photographers, but that doesn't mean that we can't bring on people that can help us along the way. And I think that's really where elevating our business takes a huge turn, is when we rely on those people who are experts in their craft and letting them do their thing. Just as we love when clients, trust us and let us have creative freedom, and we get to do all the fun things, right? When a client is so trusting of us, and they know that we're the best fit for them. And so I think too, with those listening, if you kind of are looking at your website and you're like, this copywriting is not doing it for me, and I don't have a way with words, definitely consider a copywriter. And same goes through other parts of our businesses, whether you're outsourcing your editing or whatever it may be. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and yeah, leaning into those. And so, Sarah, I loved what you said too. The relief that you can feel from entrepreneurs when they let go is really cool.
Yeah, and I think that I often refer to, if my car wasn't working, I wouldn't fix it myself. Like I'm not a mechanic, so I'm not going to pretend to be. I'm going to go to someone who can take care of fixing my vehicle for me and make sure it runs smoothly. And with writing, I think that, again, going back to that point we made earlier, that in the creative world, so whether you're filmmaking or in photography, or whether it's interior design or event planning or floristry, whatever it might be, there is this I guess stigma, this belief that we have to do all of the creative parts of our business ourselves, otherwise we're not doing it well or not doing it properly. But I do think it's important to outsource where it makes sense to outsource. And if writing isn't something that you're good at or isn't your strong suit, then absolutely. I often find that people really struggle with writing about themselves, and it doesn't feel authentic or genuine. And I know from having multiple conversations with the people that I've worked with, it can it's hours and hours of sat looking at a blank page, trying to write something about yourself, and it's a difficult thing to do. And I think that if you bring someone in to help you with that, and collaborate with you on it, because I'm certainly not taking the reins and not working alongside the creative entrepreneurs that I partner with. We're working together to achieve the same goal. And I think that it's, as I said before, handing over that rein and partnering with one another results in something that's much stronger, and much more authentic, and something that you'd be proud to share with people, whether it's via Instagram, newsletters, or your website, instead of that cringe, oh, did I write that about myself in 2 years time, and you look back on it and say, oh my gosh, like what was I thinking? Because we've all been there, at the very beginning of starting our businesses, we did those things.
Oh, totally. Paul and I had some very cringy about me's bios like 10 years ago. And just as how our business has elevated and changed, like what our about bio is too. And especially too, I don't know if you feel this way too, Sarah, but when a creative comes to you and they're doing a full rebrand and they're looking to serve a new market, right? Maybe that the way that website was and the copywriting within it served maybe that level of clientele, but now they're looking to level up into a new market. What have you found to be the case in being able to speak more in alignment or eloquent or something like that within this next level of luxury planners or clients?
Eloquence is key, and I think that that's a really an important factor when thinking about writing and copywriting. I think that sometimes people mistake luxury, moving into luxury market, with bigger, more confusing words and vocabulary, and that's not necessarily the case. It still has to be understandable and relatable, but I do think there has to be elegance and eloquence, and it has to be, in my mind, as a copywriter, it almost poetic, like as poetic as the work that you're creating. I think that they have to be aligned with one another, to really make your client feel something, and be swept away or swept up by the idea of, oh, that's who I want to work with. I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of creative folks that I've worked with recently, about how they want their website to draw people in. They want not scan, but to savor a story instead of just everything's so fast paced in the digital world, right? We're so quick with things. We don't read things as much as we used to. But to pull people in from the very beginning, and again be evoking feeling from the get-go, like the idea of almost clients getting lost in that work that you're sharing both visually and with the vocabulary is definitely what I'm seeing more of, in terms of what people want from copy and their work, which is great because it's what I feel so strongly about too. And that's my goal as a writer, to really make people feel.
So instead of, sitting there for hours and hours sitting at a blank page, I think it can be really helpful to draw inspiration. Where would you say, Sarah, is the best place for creatives to draw inspiration from? I think it's very easy for people to think, and maybe the listeners to think, oh, I need to look at maybe the top filmmaker, those top few filmmakers or those top few photographers. That's where I need to pull my inspiration from. Would you agree with that, or would you disagree with that?
I would disagree with it, and there's nothing wrong with looking at the work of your peers, and your counterparts in the industry. I think it's important to know what they do and how they do it. But I do think it's key to look outside of the box and to think beyond the industry, just because at the end of the day, and I like to remind creatives that I'm working with, you don't want to be a carbon copy of the person that's inspiring you. Yes, draw inspiration from them, but also dig a little bit deeper. Perhaps I always ask, think about the websites that you've landed on. What is it, you browse generally in your day to day? So it might be clothing brands that you're drawn to, or it might be interior design, or it might be gardening accounts on Instagram. Whatever it is where your personal interests lie, and where you've sort of spent time looking at those visuals and those websites, what is it about them that you love? And I think that's a really good jumping off point as far as sort of digging into finding inspiration, because there's a whole world out there beyond the wedding filmmakers and wedding photography, where we can draw those ideas from. And once you tap into some of those, I think you sort of start to uncover a little bit more about yourself, your brand, and sort of set yourself apart from the others too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can get so in this world, in this industry, we can't see outside of it. But it is so refreshing when I can say for myself, like when you read something, say it's like Architectural Digest or somewhere else. I remember a catalog that I would get from a lighting company. Schoolhouse. They're like based in Portland. And I remember getting their catalog and actually being really pulled in with
Right.
their words and their copy. They did such a good job. And I remember just kind of thinking, like, I remember sending it to a friend too, like, oh, I love the copy, how they do this. And I actually read it. Like, who is reading? That's how talented they were. Like, who's reading the copy
Yeah,
of
I
a
love that.
lighting catalog?
Yeah, no, I've
So
been that, and I keep that sort of thing too, because it's just like, it's a great reference. Like, oh yeah, remember why I hung on to that, magazine that, or some flyer that landed in the mailbox that, as you said, was a mail out from a lighting company. But yeah, it pulled me in, and it wasn't necessarily the visuals. It was because they talked so beautifully and so eloquently about their product. Or sometimes it's not even about their product; they just tell a great story. And it leads into eventually learning more about the product because you want to know more.
yeah, yeah. We, in our mastermind group this past round, we have a few, guest speakers come in and speak with our students. And one of them was Tori Smith with Smith and James Events. And she is just an expert in identifying your ideal client. And there was something that really I walked away with. And she talked about how you do need to put a lot of thought into these Instagram captions. I think some of us think that like no one really reads them. And she's like, I really do. And if you think about it, if you're bored writing this Instagram caption, then I'm bored reading it. And so it's important
That's
to like put some like really real thought into that. And that, like you said, people do read. They're reading your bio, they're reading your captions. They're then, maybe depending on what they like or don't like, maybe if they like it, they're moving on over to your website and they're looking through that too. So all of those little pieces are so important.
Yeah, I 100%, and it's true. That's a great way of looking at it. That if you're bored writing the caption, your reader is you're bored reading it, right? I mean, it's a really it's a way of thinking about it that makes you sort of take stock of your situation and say, wow, I really should be trying a little bit harder on that, or because I get it, we're all busy, and Instagram and social media is hard to keep up with all of those things, but I do think it is important to have consistency along it within your messaging of the brand, and vocabulary that you use and wording is a key part of that.
Right.
Yeah, so true.
I would love to hear, Sarah, just about the specific services that you offer. You've talked about you've helped people with newsletters, blog writing, their website, all those things. If a creative were to come to you and say, "Hey, I need help with my copywriting. It's not doing the job anymore." Where can they get started with you? Is there, a full scale option? Is there a partial option? Walk us through kind of your process.
Sure. So I think a lot of people come to me first initially about their website, right? That's I guess the biggest piece of the puzzle as far as making a change to your brand in terms of copy, updating your website. And most of those projects, that tends to be the biggest kind of project to take on. But a lot of those clients have evolved into clients that I write regularly for. So whether that be blog posts, newsletters, whatever sort of client correspondence that might be, and it really becomes a lot of my work has become relationship based. So we start out, we figure out that I'm the right fit for them in terms of the voice that they want to create for their work. We work together on the website, and then it evolves and it's become something more because they've realized, oh hey, I want to actually communicate with my clients more frequently. We've already set up this tone and this voice, and we have a relationship, and so it's become more than that. I offer services on a much smaller scale too. I've done all kinds of projects when it comes to writing. I helped a couple write wedding vows, for example. It was a client who, a wedding planner, who got the couple in touch with me and said, hey, they're having a really hard time writing their wedding vows, and they want something special. So that was a really fun and different project. I've done engagement announcements for the New York Times. I've done a whole bunch of different things, and it's all related to writing. So anything that's writing or copy related, it's no project too big or too small that I like to look at. But I do really love working with folks that we start out working together and it's become something continuous. At the end of the day, I feel like I learn so much about the people that I work with. I'm essentially their voice, like ghostwriting for them, right? That it starts out with their website, and then I'm sending out, client newsletters on a monthly basis. So it's really nice to have those long-term relationships, just because it's fun for me, and I really tap into who they are and what they're trying to achieve, and it feels it's good to have a relationship with those people, and it feels good to be doing that kind of work.
Amazing. If you were to have any last bits of advice for maybe a filmmaker who's about 5 years into their business, they're looking to, really elevate into the next market up, what would you tell them? What would you say is, a mindset shift that you think has been really powerful from clients that you've worked with, or things that you have seen in your experience on your wide array throughout the wedding industry?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that it is the best advice I could give is it's okay to outsource your voice. I think people feel guilt, if that's the right word, guilty about having someone else speak to their client or to their ideal client. And I think that shifting that mindset to, well, it's better to have someone who's skilled take care of that and reach the right client instead of trying to do it all myself. As long as there's a good partnership between you and your writer. I'm not the right fit for everyone, and I understand that, and that's the same goes for wedding photography and filmmaking. But when you do find the right client and you work together, again, going back to what I said at the beginning, I feel the relief from the people that I've worked with and connected with, and we've got great relationships because they've handed over that part of which is a huge part of their business to someone else. And they've lost the guilt associated with outsourcing their voice, because it's still them. It still sounds like them, because I make a point of really getting to know my client and getting to know who I'm writing for. And we, again, it's a collaboration. It's never a one person effort. It's back and forward with, right, okay, does this sound right? How do we feel about the vocabulary? What speaks to you? What doesn't? So yeah, being okay with outsourcing your voice, and sort of handing the reins to someone else to do that for you, is a huge step, and the best advice I could give to someone who was wanting to elevate their brand and their business.
Love that. That is such great advice. And I think too, as business owners, we are so closely tied to our business, right? We sometimes become blind to the areas where we might be falling short, or blind to maybe the direction that our work is heading in. We may be speaking to a new
Right.
ideal client that we don't even realize it yet, And so it's so nice to bring in an outsource, and bring in people from an outside perspective to kind of guide you. I mean, Taylor, you even texted me a couple days ago and you were like, I get kind of blind and to my business. What do you think is the best wedding that I have on my portfolio right now? Like, I just kind of need to see what needs to be kind of
Right.
up front featured on my website. I don't know. I feel like what was the word you used? It was like, I think you were saying,
I don't know. I'd have to look. Maybe I do like to use the word tunnel vision. I may have said that.
yeah.
I think
Yeah. And
another
we
one
do
is
get tunnel vision.
And we get complacent with it too. Like, it's, we've seen it so many times. It's not fresh anymore, or it doesn't. With your website, for example, every time you work on your own website yourself, you're almost bored with it. Like, it's become so familiar that you can't see the bigger picture anymore and how it might appeal to your audience. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I love that Taylor reached out and asked you, and I think it's important to have those moments of like, hey, I've looked at this too many times, or it's the same goes for writing. I often say to people that we should, don't proof your own work. Have someone else proof it too, because you've read it so many times that you won't see the mistakes anymore. You won't see the errors, or where you can make improvements. But then a fresh perspective and a fresh pair of eyes makes all the difference.
Yeah, and that's where
Yes.
working with a mentor or a coach, honestly, can be such a huge help, because as much as this is true for identifying our best work as far as our films or photos go, or identifying mistakes in the copy, having a mentor, a coach, someone who's an expert in what they do, which I would consider Kelly and I experts in scaling a wedding videography business, kind of looking at your business and dissecting where are you going wrong. If you're in it, you're living in your business day to day, you're not seeing your missteps, you're not seeing your weak points, and having someone help you identify which areas of your business can be tweaked, can be improved upon, to honestly have a full 180 and finally reach the goals that you've been striving for all along. Something just kind of a switch flips when you can have someone else help you. We don't have to go it alone. So many of us are solopreneurs, or maybe even husband and wife teams, but that's the beautiful thing about the internet and being able to have
Right.
community so easily, and utilizing the resources at your disposal. There are so many resources, and if you're not seeking help, and having this go it alone mentality, then you're only holding yourself back. in whatever areas you're weakest. And we all have weak areas. Even the people at the very, very top, they would tell you in a heartbeat that they have weak areas in their businesses that they need to work with. So it's not just for, people who are just getting started. It's really at every level.
That's so true. And, going back to we touched on inspiration and looking at, others that inspire you. I can guarantee that all of those people that within the industry that we look to and say, oh, I'm really inspired by that person's website. It's so beautiful. It really draws me in. And they're at the top end of their field. I can guarantee that they didn't write their copy. They didn't do it themselves.
Yeah. And that's so important to know. Like, yeah, they're not doing it all. Like, they're generally bringing a team on to support them. So like you said, you can pour more time into what you 100%. Are good at, what you're truly talented at. I mean, again, another speaker that we had on was Chris with Storybox. Chris with Storybox Cinema is an insane networker and people person, right? He networked his way and had a strategy in place, and that is truly where he shines too. He's also a talented filmmaker as well, but he has a team with him too, right? And he's outsourcing things that needs to be outsourced and all of that. So he can spend more of his time doing what he's really, really good at, which is connecting with people, connecting with planners to ensure that his business is continuing to level up. And that was, hearing him speak inside of our mastermind was very inspiring and just true to what we're talking about here now, is that bring on a team to help you, that doesn't have to look crazy, right? It could be as, simple as having someone help you with your Instagram or writing your Instagram captions or whatever. And then letting, once your business just starts to snowball because of those small changes that you've made, that's when you can really start to see the full potential and keep that, keep that growth trajectory going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. And I think that heading into the off season, our copy is something that we should all take a look at. But before we go, I would love for the listeners to be able to connect with you online and follow along with your work. So where can they find you?
Yeah, right now I'm actually doing a website refresh myself because I understand that it's important to be, things evolve. It's important to be up to date. So you can definitely find me on Instagram at Kiar Creative. That's my Instagram handle, and follow along my journey there. And always be in touch via email if you want to connect and collaborate. I'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. And we wish you a nice, busy off season as so many, are coming to you in help with their copy. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us reach more filmmakers just like you by taking a screenshot and sharing it on social media. Don't forget to tag us at The Level Up Co.
And join us again next week, same time, same place, as we continue to level up the industry together.